Ever stop to think about, well, the sheer audacity of wanting to be the emperor? Not just ruling your own kingdom, it's sitting right at the very top.
It's a huge ambition.
It really is. Our source today, these excerpts from the Rajasuyarambha Parva, drops us right into that feeling with Yudhishthira's desire to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice.
This immense ritual.
Yeah, basically the ancient way of saying, all right, everyone, I'm in charge now. But there's this colossal figure standing in his way, King Jarasandha.
A major obstacle.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to really try and understand the political landscape back then and just how massive an obstacle Jarasandha was, according to this text.
And what's fascinating right from the start is how Krishna frames the current Kshatriyas.
Oh, right. How does he see them?
Well, he immediately sets a pretty high bar, comparing them, let's say, unfavorably, to these legendary figures from the past, like Rama.
Okay, so not quite up to scratch in his view.
Initially, maybe not, but importantly, he does acknowledge the existing social order, their own, strong sense of heritage. He traces their lineage back to powerful figures like Ela and Ikshwaku.
The big founding lineages.
Precisely. Each the origin of hundreds, literally hundreds, of royal lines. So it paints this picture of numerous independent kingdoms, each with a really deep sense of its own history.
Right, like a whole collection of smaller powers, all with their own impressive family trees, and probably a strong belief in their own importance.
Definitely. But then the text specifically highlights the descendants of Yayati and the Bhojas.
Okay, why them in particular?
They're described as numerous, very accomplished, widespread, and their prosperity was admired by, well, basically all the other Kshatriyas. So it's not like there weren't other significant forces around.
Other players on the board, definitely.
Exactly. However, the narrative quickly pivots to Jarasandha.
Here we go.
Yeah. The text strongly emphasizes how he has, and the word used is overpowered, the prosperity of these other kings. He established himself as the dominant power right there in the middle of the earth, around Mathura. And his ambition, it goes beyond just territory.
How so?
He's actively trying to create disunity among the other rulers. The text contrasts this with the idea of a true emperor, someone with central, unchallenged dominion, basically highlighting the fundamental challenge Jarasandha poses.
Okay, so Jarasandha isn't just some king with a big army. He's actively working, strategically, to stop anyone else reaching that supreme status.
That's the picture painted.
And the text gives us a rundown of key figures who are either under his control or heavily influenced by him. Sisupala, for instance.
His generalissimo, his top military commander.
Right. Then there's Vaka, king of the Kurushas, skilled in illusion, it says.
Yes, and Vaka being his disciple, that suggests a kind of influence that goes beyond just force, maybe into psychological manipulation too. Sounds dangerous.
It really does. And then you have Hansa and Dimvaka.
Ah, yes. Described as exceptionally strong and, crucially, considered unslayable by weapons.
Unslayable. That's quite a reputation.
Absolutely. Their invincibility, or at least the belief in it, would undoubtedly amplify Jarasandha's whole aura of power and, frankly, the fear he inspired.
Yeah, like having two unstoppable forces on your side. The list keeps going, though. Dantavakra, Karusha, Karva, Megahalana. It's a pretty substantial network tied to him.
It is. And then we get to Vagadatta.
King of the Yavanas in the west. Powerful guy, right? Rules like Varuna, subdued Muru and Naraka.
Immense authority. And here's the twist. He was actually an old friend of Yudhishthira's father, Pandu.
Oh, really? So why is he with Jarasandha?
Fear. Pure fear has apparently compelled him to submit, even though the text notes he still holds affection for Yudhishthira.
Wow. That says a lot about Jarasandha's reach, the power of that fear.
It really does. That internal conflict in Vagadatta, it highlights the kind of coercion Jarasandha could wield. It wasn't just military might. It was this widespread feeling that resistance was, well, pointless. And the mention of Purajit, Yudhishthira's own maternal uncle, as the only king who still regards him with affection, well, that just underscores how isolated Yudhishthira seems in all this.
Yeah, it really paints a picture, and the cast list gets even more colorful. Pundraka Vasudeva.
Ah, yes, the king of Vanga, Pundra, and the Kiratas. Described as, well, foolishly claiming divine status, imitating Krishna.
Trying to be Krishna. Seriously.
Apparently so. And now he's aligned himself with Jarasandha. It's almost farcical, but it also shows Jarasandha's ability to draw even the deluded into his sphere.
Huh. Anyone else significant?
Oh, yes. Bhishmaka. A really mighty king of the Vojas, friend of Indra himself, supposedly rules a fourth of the world.
A major power, then.
Definitely. Defeated others through his learning. His brother Akriti was apparently like Rama,
Yeah.
but now
Let me guess. He's with Jarasandha.
he serves Jarasandha, despite being related to Krishna and the Yadavas, who the text says he treats badly now. It just emphasizes this dramatic shift in the balance of power.
It's like all these former powerhouses are just
Yeah.
submitting. Or worse.
And the consequences are stark. The text mentions this huge exodus of tribes, 18 tribes of the Bhojas, the Surasenas, Badrakas, Vodhas, Salwas, many others, all fleeing westward or southward.
Just packing up and leaving.
Out of fear of Jarasandha, this isn't just kings bending the knee. Entire populations are being displaced by his dominance.
That's incredible. It really shows the terror he inspired.
Absolutely. And the text then specifically brings up the Yadava's own history with him. Remember Kansa,
Krishna's uncle, yeah.
the tyrant? He allied with Jarasandha by marrying his two daughters, Asti and Prapti. This initially strengthened Kansa, but, it ultimately led to his downfall at Krishna's hands.
Which, of course, made Jarasandha furious.
Exactly. It created this deep-seated animosity, a personal dimension to the conflict between Jarasandha and the Yadavas, particularly Krishna.
And the Yadavas clearly didn't underestimate him.
Not at all. Their assessment was blunt. Jarasandha's might, especially with Hansa and Dimvaka backing him up, meant they couldn't defeat him, not even over a long, long time.
That's quite an admission. They thought the odds were insurmountable.
It seems so.
Yeah.
And the story of how Hansa and Dimvaka died, apparently through a misunderstanding involving Balarama, leading to Dimvaka jumping into the Yamuna after hearing incorrectly that Hansa was killed, and then Hansa doing the same upon finding Dimvaka dead, it's complex.
A strange end for supposedly unkillable warriors.
Indeed. It gave the Yadavas a brief respite. Jarasandha retreated in grief for a time, but then Hansa's widow, Jarasandha's daughter, urged him on, fueled by sorrow.
So the threat renewed?
It did, and this directly led to the Yadavas making a huge strategic decision. They abandoned Mathura and retreated west to Kusastali.
Which they fortified.
Massively, it became the legendary city of Dwaravati, built on the coast, heavily defended. It highlights their vulnerability, despite their own strength.
And they were strong. The Yadavas weren't exactly pushovers.
Absolutely not. The text lists their top warriors. You have the Atirasas, the absolute elite, Krishna, Balarama, Valadeva, Satyaki, Samva, Charadeshna, Chakradeva.
Heavy hitters.
Definitely. Then the Maharathas, Gritavarman, Anatursti, Samika, Samtinjaya, Kanka, Sanku, Kunti, even Antakoja himself and his sons. It's a formidable roster.
So the fact that even this group felt they had to retreat and build a fortress, it just speaks volumes about Jarasandha's perceived power.
It really does. And Krishna's conclusion in this part of the text is absolutely definitive.
What does he say?
He tells Yudhishthira point blank, you cannot perform the Rajasuya, this grand declaration of sovereignty, while Jarasandha lives.
Why not? Just because he's powerful.
Because Jarasandha has imprisoned numerous monarchs. The text mentions 86 kings held captive.
86? What for?
He intends to sacrifice them. All 100 of them, he's apparently aiming for 100 to the god Shiva.
Sacrifice kings. That's
Yeah.
horrifying.
It's presented as a massive display of his dominance and, well, his tyranny. It's not just a political rivalry anymore. It's a fundamental challenge to the whole Kshatriya order.
Okay, so, faced with all that, Yudhishthira's reaction in the next section. It makes perfect sense. He hesitates.
Completely understandable. He acknowledges Krishna's wisdom, hears everything Krishna has laid out, but voices serious doubt and fear.
He sees becoming emperor as just too dangerous with Jarasandha around.
It seems like a distant, maybe impossible dream with Jarasandha casting such a long, dark shadow. His main concern is the safety of Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna. He fears losing them if they confront Jarasandha.
He's weighing the potential cost.
Exactly, but then Bhima steps in.
Bhima. I can imagine his take is different.
Characteristically pragmatic, forceful.
Yeah.
He basically says, look, inaction isn't an option. We need exertion, we need to act. He highlights their collective strengths, Krishna's brilliant policy and strategy.
Bhima's own immense physical strength.
Right, and Arjuna's proven skill and triumphs in battle. He argues that together they can overcome Jarasandha.
It's that classic tension, isn't it? The cautious leader versus the eager warrior.
It is, and Krishna then offers some more nuanced counsel. He contrasts immature, maybe reckless desires with the actual qualities needed for imperial status.
Like what?
Victory, yes, but also protection of the people, virtue, ensuring prosperity, and wise policy. And then he makes a pointed observation
What's that?
that Jarasandha himself, despite his tyranny, possesses some of these qualities, particularly his undeniable strength and ability to command. He's not just a brute.
Acknowledging the enemy's strengths.
And Krishna hammers home the scale of the problem. Again, Jarasandha's unopposed rule over maybe 100 dynasties, the forced tribute, those 86 captive kings, it's a potent symbol of his ambition.
So what's Krishna's bottom line then?
His call to action frames it differently. He emphasizes the renown, the sheer glory that would come from defeating such a figure. Defeating Jarasandha is the path to becoming emperor.
Okay, trying to motivate him through honor and legacy.
It seems like it, yet Yudhishthira remains unconvinced. His fear, especially of losing his brothers and Krishna, seems to outweigh the desire for glory.
He's really stuck.
Which sets the stage perfectly for Arjuna.
Arjuna's turn. What's his argument?
Passionate. Very passionate. He talks about the paramount importance of valor, of Kshatriya dharma. He reminds them of the powerful weapons he's acquired, the allies they have. He basically says inaction is shameful.
Dishonorable.
Exactly. He argues that taking on Jarasandha, rescuing those imprisoned kings, that is the highest, noblest deed they could perform. And if they don't act, the world will just see them as incompetent, as weak.
Wow, strong words. Laying it on the line.
It's a powerful expression of those warrior ideals. Courage, duty, honor through righteous action. His confidence really contrasts with Yudhishthira's apprehension.
And what does Krishna, the Sudeva, say to that?
He agrees with Arjuna. He brings in this almost philosophical point about mortality, that, death comes for everyone eventually, king or commoner.
So don't let fear of death paralyze you.
Essentially. And he stresses the duty to fight enemies, but using good policy, exploiting their weaknesses. He acknowledges Jarasandha's unfaded glory right now, but clearly foresees his destruction, framing it as necessary to protect their own relatives, the Yadavas included.
Okay, so the pressure is mounting on Yudhishthira, which leads him to ask the big question, Raya.
The crucial question. He turns to Krishna and asks directly, what is the source of Jarasandha's incredible energy, his prowess? Why haven't you, Krishna, already destroyed him if he's such a threat?
Yeah, the elephant in the room. If Krishna is divine, why is Jarasandha still around?
It's the central mystery. And Krishna finally reveals this extraordinary origin story.
Okay, I'm ready.
It starts with his father, King Virhadratha of Magadha, described as mighty, 3 whole Akshahinis of troops. That's a massive army, wealthy, virtuous.
Sounds like a good king.
He was. He married twin daughters of the king of Kasi, promising to love them equally. But despite everything, they remained childless.
Ah, the classic childless king motif.
Exactly. So Virhadratha seeks out this powerful ascetic, Chandakausika, living in a forest grove. He pleases the Rishi with his devotion.
And the Rishi grants a boon.
Yes. Chandakausika, sitting under a mango tree, gives the king a mango that falls into his lap, blessed with a mantra specifically for granting offspring.
Okay, the magic mango. What happens next?
Well, remembering his promise to treat his wives equally, Virhadratha cuts the mango precisely in half and gives 1 piece to each queen.
Uh-oh. I have a bad feeling about splitting the magic mango.
Your feeling is correct. Both queens conceive, but each gives birth to only half a child. 2 lifeless fragments.
Oh, wow. That's horrifying.
The mothers are distraught, naturally. They have the midwives abandon the 2 halves outside the city.
Just leave them.
Yes. But then this Rakshasa woman named Jara, who lived nearby, finds the fragments.
A Rakshasa, like a demoness.
Sort of a supernatural being, often fierce. Anyway, she picks up the pieces, maybe just out of curiosity or intending to carry them off. And just by chance, as she holds them, the 2 halves join together.
They fuse.
Instantly, they form a single, living, breathing child. And not just any child, one described as sturdy, like a thunderbolt. The baby lets out a huge roar.
Incredible. So Jara accidentally created him.
In a way, yes. Jara is astonished. She's about to, well, maybe eat the child, Rakshasas sometimes do, but then she sees the king and queens emerge from the palace, utterly grief-stricken. Understanding the situation and maybe impressed by the child's power, she takes pity.
So she returns the baby.
Yes. She reveals what happened, explains how the child was formed, and gives the infant back to the king.
What a story. And the name.
The king, overjoyed, names him Jarasandha, meaning united by Jara, in honor of the Rakshasa who joined him together.
United by Jara, wow. And the text says he grew fast.
Incredibly fast, in strength and power. It's almost like the unique way he was born gave him something extra, something extraordinary.
Okay, that explains the unusual origin. But what about the invincibility part?
Ah, that comes next.
Uh-huh.
Sometime later, the Rishi Chandakausika returns to Magadha. King Vrihadratha shows him great reverence.
And the Rishi sees the boy.
He does, and he makes this detailed prophecy about Jarasandha's future.
What does he foresee?
Basically, unparalleled greatness, unmatched energy, invincibility against all weapons, even celestial ones.
Invincible even to divine weapons.
That's the prophecy. Dominance over all other monarchs, the ability to seize anyone's prosperity, the support of all four social orders, obedience from all kings. He'll even behold the god Rudra, Shiva.
That's quite the destiny laid out for him. Essentially foreordained to be this overwhelming force.
Pretty much. It explains why he seems almost destined for this terrifying level of power. After hearing this, Vrihadratha eventually retires to the forest, and Jarasandha takes the throne, fulfilling the prophecy through his conquests.
Okay, that explains the power and the seeming invincibility. It's baked into his origin and destiny.
Exactly, and the text then circles back to the conflict with Krishna, stemming from Kansa's death.
Right, the personal feud.
And it mentions this incredible feat. Jarasandha apparently hurled his mace all the way from his capital, Jayavraja, towards Mathura.
How far is that?
99 yojanas. A yojana is an ancient unit of distance. Estimates vary, but we're talking a very, very long way. Hundreds of miles, possibly.
He threw a mace hundreds of miles.
According to the text, it landed at a place called Yadavas, near Mathura. It's meant to underscore his immense physical power and the directness of his threat to the Yadavas. It's a tangible symbol of their animosity.
Just incredible power. And the text brings up Hansa and Dimbaka again here.
Yes, it reiterates their supposed invulnerability to weapons and also mentions their political and moral wisdom. It reinforces why the Yadavas felt they couldn't take on the combined might of Jarasandha plus these two. The strategic decision to avoid open conflict looks very rational in that light.
Okay, I think I'm getting the full picture now.
So, to sort of pull it all together, we see Jarasandha as, well, far more than just another powerful king.
Yeah, definitely not.
You've got his unique birth, touched by both ascetic power and a Rakshasa. You have this powerful prophecy practically guaranteeing his invincibility and dominance, and you see the tangible result. Widespread fear, even among the strongest warriors like the Yadavas, forcing them to flee and fortify. He seems almost insurmountable.
This deep dive really does expose that central conflict starkly, doesn't it? Yudhishthira's ambition for the Rajasuya, the ultimate symbol of being the emperor, smashing right up against this seemingly unmovable object, King Jarasandha. The text makes it crystal clear. He's not just a rival. He's like an existential threat to Yudhishthira's entire imperial project.
Absolutely. And that strategic dilemma facing Yudhishthira, Krishna, and the Pandavas is just palpable. You feel their struggle. They're caught between this grand ambition for imperial glory, for righteous rule, perhaps.
And the very real, very terrifying prospect of confronting an enemy who seems, well, almost divinely ordained to be invincible.
Precisely. Which brings us really to the crux of the situation they face, and maybe a point for you, the listener, to consider.
Okay, what should we be thinking about?
Given everything we've heard from the text, Jarasandha's unique nature, his power, his allies, that prophecy, the fear he generates, what do you think is the right course of action for Yudhishthira? Is Bhima right? Is a direct military confrontation the wise path? Or does Arjuna's passion need to be tempered with something else? Is a more subtle, maybe even unconventional strategy needed here? How do you overcome someone like Jarasandha?
That is a fascinating point to ponder. Direct assault versus something else entirely. Lots to think about there. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today into this really intricate world of ancient power, ambition, and these seemingly insurmountable challenges.
My pleasure.
Until our next exploration, keep those questions turning.